will trickle in as they want to from here on out, but we should probably go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. We're so glad that you made it back, or that if you were not here last month that you made it at all. We're so lucky to have Kenneth here teaching this Better Together class for us, and I'm sure, Kenneth, that you will be talking to people about what we did last month. I feel like, I don't know, maybe you should ask my husband how I did with the assignment from last month. He did pretty well. But I don't know if you were going to do a check-in for that or not, but I feel like even just with just attending the class, I felt like was good for us. So, and hopefully it will be good for all of you. And I'm Wendy Annis. I work at the American Fork Library. This is one of the programs that I administrate at the library. Kenneth also teaches the AF Aware classes, which is the mental health awareness series of classes at the library. This month's class is on grief and trauma, on healing from grief and trauma. And it will be on March. I was about to ask you, Kenneth, but I'm not sure I trust you to know. It will be on, let me look really fast. You would think I would have it right in front of me, wouldn't you? March 11th. And you can register for it on Eventbrite as well, or if you know anybody who might benefit from talking about dealing with grief and trauma, should be a really great class this month. Anyway, so I was just talking to somebody yesterday that I referred to Kenneth as a therapist who was saying how much they love him and that they've already recommended him to people too. And I said, yeah, I don't know how we got so lucky to find Kenneth to teach these classes at the library. We really are so lucky to have him as a resource. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for being here again to teach for us. And tonight we are going to be talking about fostering emotional intimacy. Is that pretty accurate, Kenneth? Okay. Yep. We've been working on trying to get kind of titles or general topics for every month to put in the Eventbrite so people know kind of what we're going to be talking about. And I put them in there as they are right now, but I think they're pretty fluid.
It's hard because I start working on a class and I think, oh no, we need to do this first, and then I rearrange everything.
Right, and then yeah, I totally get it. So, you know, we do have some topics there, but they're, you know, definitely changeable. Anyway, so I'm just going to turn the time over to Kenneth and let him get started. Thank you for being here, Kenneth. Thank you for being here, everybody. We're so glad you're here. And turn the time over to Kenneth. Take it away, Kenneth.
Thanks, Wendy. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here tonight. You know, a couple of years ago, I was working on my trusty steed, Winston, and he is a plum-colored 1994 Civic. A lot of people say, the purple car? No, it's plum. You can check. That's the official name of the color. He wouldn't start. I would turn the key and nothing would happen. I would hear just like a clicking noise. So the starter motor wasn't turning over. And now, who's got money to pay for mechanics, right? So I was trying to troubleshoot and figure out how to fix him. And so I'm going, okay, I turn the key, and I can hear like something's happening. There's like a clicking. Maybe it just doesn't have enough electricity in the battery to run it. So I charged the battery for a couple hours and I came out, click, same thing. Now I've had the clicking before when I've had a bunch of corrosion on the battery terminals. If your car ever does that, if it just goes click, 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 you may just need to like squeeze the terminal a little bit. I usually just twist it, and that's enough to get enough electrical contact. That didn't work. So I can't figure this out. And I'm thinking, it's gotta be the starter motor. But I charged the battery works. It's probably something else down the line, or I have a short in the whole electrical system, heaven forbid. So I was trying to troubleshoot the starter motor, and I spent a week messing around trying to get this thing started. And finally my dad was like, are you sure it's not the battery? I'm like, yeah, I charged it. And he's like, but do you have enough cold cranking amps? And I was like, okay, what? What's that? Like, I tested my battery, Dad. I said it had 12 volts. She's like, yeah, 12 volts, but how much amperage? And I was like, oh, I should have paid attention in auto shop a little closer. So sure enough, I go get a new battery and I pick it up and immediately the car starts. What I didn't have and what I really could have used was a troubleshooting guide. I was going off the best I knew, but I didn't have a guide. And you guys have probably seen these before. Oh, hey, Wendy, could you turn on screen sharing for me?
Did that work? I thought I had it already on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
So you've probably seen this before. Little troubleshooting diagram. It kind of gives you a decision tree, a little flow chart, you know, and you go one direction and you answer your questions like, does your car start? No. Okay. Have you checked the battery? You know, these are pretty common, right? And I didn't have one. When you have one of these, you can solve your problems a lot faster. And basically what training does is it gives you the knowledge to create one of these charts. It helps you to identify problems faster and therefore be able to fix them faster. The training saves you time and it saves you frustration. Now, as a therapist, I work with all kinds of issues. I see about half couples and the other 50%, I'm usually seeing individuals, a little bit of family work thrown in there. But I work with people who have depression, anxiety, people who struggle with addiction, with trauma. Basically, for each kind of problem, there's a flow chart. There's a troubleshooting diagram that goes along with it. There's kind of some specifics for those topics, but then there's also just like general ones that every human needs to be able to have a happy life. Like here's a guide I actually made with my awesome Microsoft Paint skills. Like, when you have a negative thought, what are you supposed to do with it? And I made this so it could be very simple, so I could hand it out to people and they go, oh, okay, this is how I deal with my negative thoughts. Everybody needs this. Everybody needs to know how to deal with stuff. And when you have the guide and you can just follow it, it saves you time, it saves you frustration. And so what I'm wanting to do tonight and with all of these classes is to give you extra knowledge, extra training, so that you kind of have these maps of like how to troubleshoot, how to fix things. And that's why I started my company, Ascension, to do classes like this, because I want this to be common knowledge. I want American Fork to be the most psychologically, relationshiply literate city on the planet, where ask anybody on the street, like, hey, how can I strengthen my marriage? And people will be like, oh, well, have you started with your foundation of friendship? Foundation of friendship, tell me more. Okay, here's what you need to do. You're gonna want to pull out some paper and write this down. You know, you're gonna be able to like talk to your friends and be like, hey, I just went to a class. Can I teach you something awesome I learned?
Can you just make a little proselyting flow chart, like a little flyer we could hand out?
Is your life perfect? No. Okay, come to the library and learn the truth. Yeah. But I want people to be able to know this kind of stuff off the top of their head, so that when there's disconnection in the relationship, they can just go, okay, let's run through the chart. What are we missing? Oh, that's what it is. And then we can change it. You do that and you get the results. So when people ask you, you know, what do I do for my marriage? What do you learn at the class? You give up a Friday night to learn this stuff? Was it useful? Was it at least entertaining? And you'll be able to tell them that it's all about starting new patterns that increase your ratio of positivity to negativity. That was one of the big things we started with last week. The researchers found that to make a really fulfilling relationship, you need to have 5 times the amount of positivity. Those negatives, they're powerful. One thing said in anger can be very destructive, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of good experiences to kind of like overwhelm that and get you back into a balance where you feel like, okay, maybe I can trust my partner. Maybe they're not going to sucker punch me again. So when you increase that ratio, you get to fulfillment at 5 to 1. And you know, if that ratio drops down to 0.81, that's like the divorce cutoff, because when there's less positivity than negativity, you're like, why am I even in this relationship in the first place? We fall in love because we like each other. And that's why we stay together, because we continue to like each other. So if someone's struggling in the relationship, you know automatically they need to adapt their ratio a little bit. They need to stop doing the negatives and they need to start doing the positives. You change the ratio, you change the relationship. And some of the patterns that we worked on last time to increase that ratio were pretty simple. Like, honestly, it was like stupid how simple they were. And the first one was just smiling. It's easy. Every time your partner walks into the room, you just smile at them. Pretty doable, pretty easy. When you do that, when you smile at someone, it conveys a message through your eyeballs that says, you're safe. I like you. Thanks for being here. And I think we should probably practice that a little bit now. So I want you to get ready for this. I want you to tune into your feelings of love in your heart. And in a minute, you're just going to like let them squirt out of your eyeballs. You're going to shoot them out like laser beams. So you're just like, loving. And your partner will just be like, oh, that feels so good. Oh. And it's just going to soak into them, and it's going to make them feel like they're floating because they're just like full of light now. All right, you ready? Turn to them in 3, 2, 1. Nuzzle them with your teeth. Okay, and stop. Oh, don't want to be too intense here about that. Feels good, right? Pretty simple. Now, some people say, why do I need to always smile at them? Like, of course I like them. I married them. Isn't it enough for them to know that they're liked because I married them? No, not even close. We are constantly questioning whether our partner cares about us, whether they understand us, and that can change multiple times in a minute. Emotionally, we usually don't feel safe with people. And so smiling is a very simple and very useful way to help them feel safe with you. Our emotions, they're very, very delicate, more so than we give them credit for. And some people are like, oh, come on, Kenneth, like, I grew up in a household where we just teased each other constantly and we didn't smile and we were cynical and sarcastic with each other. It was fine. That may have been normal. That may have been the way that your family did things, but emotions are still there. And in order to live that way, we often have to kind of try to dampen them, shut them down a little bit. And it can be a way to have stable relationships. But if that's the kind of culture that you had growing up or that you're creating now, you're going to find that you get kind of stuck at a certain level. You'll get pegged at a certain level of emotional connection, and you won't be able to go further because there are parts of ourselves that we don't want to share unless we feel completely open, completely safe. And so if things seem a little stagnant, you may want to consider that. So one of the other patterns we focused on was sharing appreciation. And your homework assignment was to do that twice a week. Share something with the other person that you appreciated about them. We also talked about responding to bids. So what's a bid? It's when we're trying to get someone's attention. And this could be pulling out your phone and you just go, ha, ha, ha. And you're hoping that they'll ask you what you just saw. And when you respond to bids, it creates that sense of connection, like, oh, I'm aware of you. We're in the same room, but like, I'm with you here, even if we're doing something separate. Responding to bids is really important. We also created some rituals of parting and rituals of reunion. So in the morning, before anybody leaves, if you actually do get to leave during the pandemic, you know a little bit about the person's day, and you kind of know when you're coming home, you know what you're doing during the day, and you smooch and you touch and you look into each other's eyes. And the same thing when you get home, you rush to each other and you wrap each other up in a passionate embrace and you dip kiss each other. That's one option there. And you just spend a couple minutes reconnecting. And sometimes you have to be like, kids, go away, I love you, I'll see you in a minute. Got to connect with my spouse first. They're the priority. That's a really good example when you do that for your kids. You show them what a marriage can look like and what's most useful. We also went over how we kind of have to prioritize this stuff. It has to be on the schedule sometimes, because if we don't, we just fill up the time with other stuff. I just downloaded a new video game and I've been playing Halo. I got my new controller. When you let that be the first thing you do with your morning, you just you lose time in the day for other important things. So we need to put first things first. We also talked about a fancy $5 therapy term called reciprocal causality, meaning that A leads to B and B leads to A. And in a relationship, our actions are constantly influencing our partner and then starting to create some of the reactions they send back to us in this constant feedback loop. And so even if you're the only one that chooses to do something different, even if you're the only one in this class tonight, just by you changing what you do starts to bring out a new pattern in them, because this is like a dance. If you change the dance you're doing, they have to adapt to you. So I'm interested to hear. I'd like to hear some reports. What was the homework like for you? What did you learn from it? What kind of challenges did you run into? Who'd be willing to give us some reports? Good, bad, and the ugly, everything.
Well, I can share that the smile thing has really been surprisingly working, and I think it was a day or two after our first class that Amy popped up from behind the couch and just made this huge stupid grin, and at first I thought, how silly, and then I realized how good it made me feel, and it didn't matter how silly it was.
Every marriage could use a little more silly. Thank you. Anybody else like to share?
Hi, yeah, okay, well, yeah, I forgot all about the smiling thing, but hopefully we smile at each other. But we did make it a point to share our days and what we appreciated with each other, and it was really, really, really special. And it seems like now I don't even think about that as an assignment. We just kind of do that, tell each other we love her, love each other. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And it looks like Katie Carter said, I loved our chance to connect and think about the things we appreciate. Oh, I got to make my window bigger so I can read this. Because we appreciate in each other. It's amazing that a simple 5-minute activity can bring us so much closer to each other. Yes. This stuff is simple. It makes you feel good. And it's awesome when it's not even an assignment. It's just second nature. And that is what I'd really like for you to have, is where these patterns are just second nature. They're instinctive, so that it's not something you have to think about. It's a lifestyle. And when you make these a lifestyle, you get results continuously, because success is a formula. And if you follow it, you get the results. And so tonight we're going to Wendy.
I was just going to say, I think it felt kind of awkward for me at first, because I was doing it because I was supposed to be doing it. So there were a couple of times when I started to say something and then was like, it doesn't really seem that genuine because he knows it's our assignment, or, but I just kept having to remind myself, yeah, that's why you keep doing it, so that it does become more natural and more normal. And then eventually I feel like it did, when I thought to say things. And then I was just going to let everybody laugh with me that I was having a text conversation with you, and that having a text conversation with Kieran at the same time, and then hilariously accidentally sent you an appreciation text that in my head, I wasn't even thinking about our assignment. It was just, I really was appreciating something that he was doing for me that day and accidentally sent that text to you. You're like, I don't think that was for me. I was like, oh, right. But at least you know I'm doing my assignments now.
Yeah, and even if it feels awkward, it doesn't matter because everyone has mirror neurons. When we see someone's face do a thing, we have a part of our brain that lights up and tells us like they're feeling this way. And so seeing someone smile makes us feel the sensation of smiling inside. So it doesn't even matter if it feels fake. How about that? How easy is that? Tonight, we're going to work on more of these patterns that you can build emotional connection with. And we're going to go on a little bit deeper of a layer because last time we talked a lot about building a foundation of friendship with each other. And now we're going to talk about ways to increase your emotional connection, your emotional intimacy with each other. So, emotional connection. It starts with a foundation of trust. That's one thing. But once we get on top of the foundation of trust, it basically, we can boil it down into two parts: attunement and fondness. And we'll talk about both of those, attunement and fondness. But to understand attunement, we first need to understand something called the visibility principle. What makes people fall in love? It can often feel magical, like it just happened. I don't know, I just fell in love with them. I fell out of love with them. But the reason we fall in love with people is because they make us feel visible. We each have things in ourselves that we care about. And when someone recognizes them, it feels amazing. When there's something we care about, when there's some quality we have, I'm a nerd, I love knowledge. And when someone recognizes like, hey, you know things and that was helpful. The thing that you spent your time learning when everyone else was having a social life and you were reading, it helped me. And I go, oh, good. There was a purpose to all of this. Thank heavens. That makes you feel appreciated and seen. It's a powerful thing. And that's a powerful way to build connection with anybody, not just in a relationship of, with your spouse or anything. So it's feeling seen where this starts. And when you're feeling seen for things that you both care about, that's when love starts to develop. If we could go a little deep and bust out the Aristotle quotes, let me share something he said, all love for others is an extension of the love one has for oneself. People have the same attitude toward the one they love as they do towards themselves. For his friend really is another self. As when we wish to see our own face, we do so by looking into the mirror. In the same way, when we wish to know ourselves, we can obtain that knowledge by looking at the one we love. For the one we love, as they say, is another self. So it's having things in common, having things that we connect on, that starts to build that relationship glue in the first place. We like people that are like us. We like to be around people that are like us and care about the same things. So I love being with you guys tonight because you're people that care about making your lives better. And you're my people. We have a lot in common here. So if you want to make emotional connection with people, you need to make them feel seen. It's not enough to just see them yourself, but you have to help them to know that you are seeing things. What kind of things? Like that they did the dishes? Yeah, it's good to make people feel seen for that kind of stuff, but it's the deepest parts that matter the most. If a person values the fact that they're witty, you're going to want to respond to their jokes and tell them how funny they are. So this is part of the reason why I gave you the assignment last time, to share appreciation with each other. It builds that sense of visibility and it creates that attunement. So ways that you can make a person feel visible, you can write them a note. Hey, thank you so much for this thing that you did. I love you for these reasons. Leave it under their pillow, leave it in a place they'll find it. Or you can buy something that they like. Buying flowers might be great. When I buy flowers for my wife, it's rare, but if I do, it's Gerber daisies because I know that she likes those. But she'd be much happier if I brought her home a Reese's egg because they have the perfect peanut butter to chocolate consistency. It's just, incredible. You can also just do secret nice things for them that matter. My wife's a massage therapist and she has a lot of sheets to fold. She has a lot of laundry and it makes her feel seen and cared about when I notice like, oh, she's got quite a pile of laundry, and I start folding the sheets for her. Sometimes we honestly have to schedule this and sit down and think, what will make my spouse feel seen? What can I do for my partner today? And you think about it, you plan it. I saw a class pop up. My wife's also a potter. And there's a class on how to do glazing. And I looked into it, and it was for like spray glazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could get her a compressor and a little paint gun. Holy cow, I don't think she's thought of this. It's just going to make her feel awesome. And so we went to Home Depot, and I said, close your eyes as I bring this out. And I did the big reveal. And she's like, what's that for? I'm like, it goes with your other present, this paint gun. And she's like, what? I'm like, this is for glaze. You can do this on your pottery. And she's like, what? And it made her feel very seen, because I'm thinking about the things that she cares about, things that she values, and then making an effort. And that's really what we so want to see from each other. We want to see effort. We like spending time together. All the 5 love languages are all great, but often we just want to see that there has been effort put in, because that makes us feel like we matter. So you plan things out. I got a reminder that popped up this morning that said, spend 5 minutes brainstorming about Christmas present, because that is a huge stress for me and I hate it. And then November rolls around and I'm like, I don't know what to get her. So I have now got a monthly 5 minutes of pondering so I can make a list. But use reminders on your phone. Let Google do the heavy lifting for you. So these are some ways that you can create visibility, which creates attunement. Now, as far as fondness, this other pillar of emotional connection, the attunement part, the focusing on them and what they want to be seen for and what they want to be appreciated for, that makes you more aware. And when you're aware of them, you can be fond of them. And you share the appreciation with them, and that builds connection. So there's another one of those patterns I mentioned for success. If you just start up the patterns, you get the results. So be aware of them, call out the things that they care about, and help them to feel visible by talking about it. So when you see it, that helps you to build fondness for them, because you can sit and engage your emotions. And honestly, sometimes for me, that's a choice. I live a lot in my head, and I have to turn on my heart and say, I don't just intellectually feel like fondness for her, but like I feel it emotionally. I look at the things my wife does. She made me pot stickers 30 minutes ago. And I have to sit and go, huh, she didn't have to make those for me. I love pot stickers. I appreciate her. It increases the feelings of fondness. And when you have the emotions there, you're going to share them more often. And when you express thanks, it's going to feel very genuine to them. And so to build fondness, you need to be expressing, but it also helps to express what they did and why you appreciate that thing. I appreciate that you made those pot stickers for me, honey, because I know that you came home and had a headache, and you knew I was going to do this class and I needed some dinner. And so thank you for taking time out of your day to do that when you didn't feel so great. Giving the reason is really important in that. So I want you to think of a time, and this could be recent. This could be from when you were dating. But I want you to think of a time when they did something that you just liked, that you felt fondness for, that you admired them for. Time when you're just like, oh, that's amazing. I love that they did that for me. Go back into your memories.
Hello.
Yes.
One time I had, years ago, I had a growth in my abdomen, and I had to have a major surgery to take it out. And he's an artist, and so he made me this really cool picture of him pointing to me and saying, "Get better," or something really cool that he came and put onto the hospital bed so I could just look at it. And I just love that.
Remember that.
He can't remember that. Oh, it was so cool. It was really cool because I was in so much pain. It was awesome.
I can't remember the picture, oh, I don't remember the picture. I just remember doing that.
Yeah,
So,
it was awesome.
I want you to tap into that feeling of fondness then, Mary. I want you to hold that in your heart.
Oh, thank
Call that up. And let's see. Amy, do you have a hand up there? Or is that, oh, that was just Josh touching. Okay, good. Now, hold on to that feeling in your heart. And I'd like you to turn to the other person and take turns, obviously. I'd like you to share the thing that you're thinking about that you felt fondness for them. Tell them why you appreciated it and how it made you feel. And once they share, switch and share the thing you were thinking of where you felt a fondness or admiration for them. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right. Now, while we're on the fondness and admiration track, do me a favor, flip on your video real quick, and I want you to give Wendy a wave and show your appreciation for her starting these classes for us. Without her, we would not be here. Ah, it's nice to see everybody. So what we want to do is increase the fondness and admiration that we feel and that we share with each other. And so sometimes we need to have tools to help us do that. And let me tell you, this is one of the best tools there is. This is my gratitude journal. My friend Chelsea gave this to me on my wedding day, and she gave my wife Heidi one too. She said, this is for you to write down the things you're grateful for about your spouse. And having this book sitting around reminds me, like, oh, I should think about this more often. You know, there are times I set this out with a morning routine, with my other books that I read in the morning. And I'll try to make sure that I'm thinking of something. Because to build the emotional connection with the attunement, we've got to be aware first. And so if you've got the journal where you're writing down things you've seen them do, that's going to tune you in. That's going to make you way more aware, way more attuned. So I would recommend grabbing yourself a journal specifically dedicated just for this one purpose. And do a little morning routine. Take 30 seconds with your journal and go, what did they do yesterday? Or do it at night, whenever works for you. Just jot down a couple of notes, what they did and why you appreciated it. This is going to help your awareness. This is going to make it more natural, because when this is naturally on your mind and you're catching them doing things that you like, you're going to naturally want to express that more. And this will begin to change and increase your ratio of positivity, making you feel more in love. This will start to turn on all of those infatuation feelings. This is one of the things you can do to get back to that stage of giddy giggles. And this is going to help you to make it something that, yeah, you just do in the moment. It'll start being more spontaneous. Also really nice to read this when you're in a fight, because you can remember, oh, I like this person. there's a reason I'm with them in the first place. But it's really awesome too, because I can go back through the years of my marriage and I don't remember all this stuff at all. So I've got this record of all these good things that make me feel more connected and closer to her. It helps you in the moment share more, and it gives you a record to look back on. And it's fun to crack that open and look at all the things that she's done. So visibility is something we build over time as we have the attunement, as we have the fondness, but it goes by degrees because each one of us is like an onion. We've got layers, and very often we're interacting with each other on one of the more superficial layers. If you just imagine yourself like in the middle of an everlasting gobstopper, and you got those different rings around you, we have certain levels of comfort that we have with different people. Some people get in closer and some people are further out. And let me show this to you in pyramid form. Just imagine this, if this was the old gobstopper here. The most superficial way you can interact with a person is through cliche, sharing water cooler conversation, right? We start talking about facts. How about them Bruins? I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. And then you start sharing how you feel about the Bruins and whatever sport they play. And opinions is usually where a lot of our friendships exist in, on that level. We know each other's opinions. We tend to agree on opinions, and that's why we like being around people. This is where we kind of start to run into our very first gate. Each one of these layers has a gate with a lock on it. And each new person that comes into our world gets to go through these gates deeper and deeper into our emotional self. And we test them at each level. If we share an opinion with someone and they go, "That's stupid," then we go, "Oh, okay, this person does not have access to my opinions anymore because they made me feel stupid. They said that I was dumb, and so they're not safe." Certainly not going to tell them about my hopes and dreams because I don't want them pooing on that if they don't respect my opinions. So at each level, there's a test. And as we get closer to someone, as the emotional intimacy increases, we're going to start talking about our feelings. Now, as if your wife has ever said, like, "We never talk," and you're like, "What do you mean? We talk all the time." This is what they're talking about. They don't maybe know how to put it into words. You talk a lot. Maybe you talk about child rearing because that's what's on your mind, what you're busy with. But very often it's women pushing for more emotional intimacy. They want to know not just what you think about things, they want to know what you feel about things. They want to be able to see these deeper parts of you. Because if you can't see it, you can't connect with it. And so if you feel like you're stuck on your emotional intimacy, time to start looking at the feelings. And a lot of guys, I don't really feel feelings. I don't think they feel feelings because we've been taught in our culture, unfortunately, that feelings are weak and we should stuff them. And so because we're convinced that it's strong to not have them, we fearfully run from them. That makes sense, right? It seemed to me that if something's a weakness, we should be able to own it with confidence and go, "Oh yeah, I have feelings, I have weaknesses, not a problem. I can handle it because I'm a manly man." You notice how like it's the tough guys who always cry first. They're trying to stuff so much of that down and look really tough, but I'm talking about their moms and they just blubber. True strength to be able to talk about what you feel. And if you're a little disconnected from that, that's okay. I've been super disconnected myself, and it's been a journey to start learning how to connect on a deeper level. Underneath feelings, we get into fears, failures, weaknesses, and at the very depth, there's need. It can be very scary to talk about this stuff. And a lot of times we're just not willing to because there hasn't been enough positivity. We don't have the ratio yet, and we don't feel safe to share. And you know what? Sometimes we can provide an incredibly supportive environment for our spouse, and they still don't feel comfortable sharing just because life taught them that they shouldn't really trust people, or their family of origin. Their parents may not have handled their emotions with much respect, and so they're just not generally used to sharing. So as we get closer to a person, we get deeper, and that's where the emotional intimacy really starts to be grown, to be created when we go through that. And so if you guys are stuck, you may want to consider, if somebody's not opening up to you about a certain thing, you may want to ask yourself, how have I been responding to them? Have I been showing them that they're safe? Have I been judging them? Have I been maybe too forceful with my opinion so they don't feel like there's matters to me or to them? It's also dangerous to get closer to a person, because the closer you get, the more opportunity there is to hurt. I mean, you know, you may get just close enough to slap somebody a little bit, but if you're really up in their grill, you can punch them. You can do a low blow. And so if you share something in confidence in a moment of safety, and then they bring that up during a fight, oh, you can turn these tools of intimacy into weapons of destruction. And when you take somebody, when you take a weakness that they shared with you, if they've said, like, down, I'm terrified I'm going to turn into my mom, and during a fight you go, you're just like your mother, that's an arrow through the heart, and they go, ouch, okay, no more, you're locked out, I'm not going to share this with you anymore. And your relationship is now less close. There's less you can connect on. So we often have to do some emotional repair work, and that requires taking a lot of accountability and uncomfortable to admit, just to go, hey, you know what? I can remember this time I said this thing to you. I'm sorry. I'm going to really try to never do that again. That must have really hurt you deeply. And I basically betrayed your trust there. So here's how I'm going to work on this to make it better. And I hope that you will work on being open to trusting me in the future, because I'm owning this right now. So as you start looking at your closeness to your partner, you can kind of start asking yourself, where are my boundaries here? What am I afraid to share? At what level on the pyramid do I get stuck? Do I share my hopes and dreams? Do I share my feelings? Do I get into fears, failures, weaknesses? Am I afraid to share needs? It's good to take a mental note of that. That's something that needs to be discussed eventually. As you build up your ratio of positivity, as you connect and become greater friends, as you start feeling more appreciation, admiration, and fondness for each other, you'll start feeling safer to start talking about those difficult things that maybe you've been sweeping under the rug, that maybe don't even feel like an option to talk about because they're kind of emotionally charged. That can be a really scary conversation to have. And often it is a lot easier to do that in the context of therapy. But if you're feeling like, okay, we've established more of a foundation here, maybe we can open this up a little bit. Maybe we just say, hey, I kind of noticed we are pegged at a certain level and we're not going deeper. I was wondering if there's anything I've done that maybe made you feel unsafe. That would be a great way to start that conversation out. Another problem we run into with getting close to someone emotionally is we can't get closer to someone else than we are to ourselves. If we're not down to the level of feelings and we just stop with hopes and dreams and opinions, that's all we have to share with them. We haven't accessed our deeper parts. And so when we try to share, there's nothing else there. And that's scary because feelings is usually where we run into one of those big personal inner blockages. We don't want to feel our feelings. Feelings are overwhelming. Feelings are scary. Feelings are related to painful memories we would love to forget. And if that happens to be a problem for you, make sure that you're in the class in 2 weeks. Done in 2 weeks. Good heavens. March 11th, grief and trauma recovery. We're going to talk a lot about those emotions and how they get stuck and how we don't want to face them and how to move through them. Because when you're willing to go to the deep places in yourself, then you're able to share it with other people. Then you're able to connect on a much deeper level. And like I said, men are often taught to disconnect. So this can be a real problem for us. And one thing that I've found super helpful is practicing meditation. Not thinking deeply, not sitting and thinking, but meditation where I focus on going to a place in my mind that makes me feel safe. That feeling of safety is something that unfortunately we rarely feel at times. We often feel stressed, and we've forgotten what it's like to feel emotionally safe with ourselves. And if you didn't come to our meditation class a couple months back, you can contact Wendy or me, and I can send you a recording of a guided meditation that I take you through. One of the other things you can try, and I'd like you to try this right now, we can do some interoception exercises here. Interoception is the process of feeling what's going on inside of you. So one way to start this is to try and feel your heartbeat. So take a minute, just notice that feeling in your chest. You may have to look for it. When I first did this, I couldn't feel it at all. I knew it was in there, I thought at least. I'd sit and scan through my torso and there was nothing. Because we have some wiring connecting our body to our brain. And some intellectual type personalities spend so much time in their brain, they're a little bit disconnected from their body. We don't dance very good. We're not coordinated. We don't do sports because we live in our heads. And it can be really helpful to round ourselves out as people by tapping into those other parts of our intelligence, really. Tapping into our emotion, tapping into our body awareness. So try to see if you can feel your heart beating. And notice what it feels like. Notice where you feel it, how intense it is. And if this is any kind of a challenge, then this is a nice little activity that you can practice. Start being more aware of yourself, because if you can feel your physical sensations, that will help you to become more aware of your emotional sensations. That's interoception. So that is a bonus assignment for any of you who may need that. If you found yourself struggling to connect with your emotions or share them, start with feeling what's going on inside. So let's talk about attunement and how to create that connection in a little more detail. We're going to talk about how to create a psychological sense of connection so that we can help people, help our partners to feel seen and loved. When we talk to each other, sometimes we just talk. It's a big pet peeve of my wife yelling at me from another room. Like, I can't hear you. I got stuff going on in here. To create great connection, it starts with some basics like get yourselves in the same room. And so I try not to holler and be like, hey, I'll usually go out and find her and get her attention. And if she's on her phone, I may say, regard me, until I get her attention. And she looks up. So you get the eye contact. That's a good way to like establish the connection first and foremost. And you don't say anything until you have the attention there. If they're on their phone and they're like, you know that you don't have their attention, but we still go on talking. We still try to talk, even though we know they're not totally there. And this is a mistake we make with the kids too. We just show up and start talking and expect them to, sir, yes, sir, I'm listening to everything you say. We got to get the teens' attention first. And so we don't want to be like, listen to me, look at me when I'm talking to you, because if they're not looking at you, it may just be because they don't feel very safe with you yet. There may be some unresolved issues that you've had with them, some negative experiences that maybe you could take some accountability for. A lot of times we think it's not respectful when a kid won't look at us. And we get really stuck on that. Like, I demand to be respected. Well, in an ideal world, every parent would be respected by their kids. But honestly, I don't think that's something kids can really understand until they're like 20 something. And the way to get respect is to act in a way that makes people want to respect you and love you. And that starts with helping people to feel safe. It starts with showing them that you care more about them than you do about the thing that you're going to tell them. And so when you do that, when you start with that, that's going to fix the problems. Kids need so much more positive contact than they get. And a great way to do that is through physical touch. You need to get your kids' attention, walk up to them, put your hand on their shoulder, and wait until they look at you. And then you've got the eye contact. Build the psychological connection in that moment. Then you can ask them something. And make sure that when you do that, it's not every time to tell them they need to do their chores. Make sure that you're working on that ratio of 5-to-1 and telling them things you appreciate about them, showing fondness and admiration for them, showing that you recognize them, you see the parts of them that they may not even recognize they have, and letting them know that they're loved for those things. That'll fix most of your parenting problems, quite honestly, if you have any. Touch is important because we're mammals. First and foremost, before we're human, we've got the mammal substrate, we've got the physiology, and mammals need touch. It calms us down immediately. It reminds us of our mothers. Babies are held constantly, and that creates a sense of emotional and like a physical connection. Now, there's some of us that learned at a young age, maybe my caregivers aren't going to be so consistent. Maybe they're going to leave me. And that makes us feel a lot of fear. And then we tend to push people away a little bit. And we go, no, I don't need anybody. I'm fine. I am a self-contained island. Nobody touch me. And it kind of makes us uncomfortable, actually. There's some people that do not like to be touched. And if that's you, then I would suggest you have an incredible journey to embark on, because you're a mammal and you need touch too. And it's something that can bring you a sense of closeness and comfort. And if you haven't figured out how to wire that up in your brain, you can turn that around. And being able to derive a sense of physical comfort from your partner is so nice. And it can be really important. There's tons of walls. We've all got blockages to emotional connection, and that just may be one of them. So if that's a thing for you, that's just something you can practice. So speaking of practice, let's do a little bit of that now. I'm going to have you do some things in a minute. They're going to be pretty simple. They're things that you've done a million times before, but I'd like you to bring a new level of awareness to these. I would like you to put your full attention right here, right now, on your partner, all of your senses to bear, and I want you to try to take these experiences in with new eyes, like they've never happened before. The other day, I'm used to kissing my wife. Kissing used to be awesome when I was dating. It was like, I look forward to it. It's all I wanted to do. Like, let's kiss for hours. And now we kiss every day, and it's routine and it's boring. And there was a moment a couple weeks ago where I saw kissing with new eyes because I allowed myself to be fully in the moment and just experience the smooching, and we're just going at it. And I was like, whoa, that's nice. Oh, I like that. We were doing it the whole time, months before, but I had forgotten that I could enjoy it. So I want you to be totally open to this experience and be open to whatever kind of experience arises. Try to enjoy it. All right. I would like, if you're sitting with your partner, for the man to go first on this one. I'd like you to gently grab your lady fair's hand and just stroke it nicely. Stroke it gently. And if you're alone tonight, stroke your own hand. It feels nice. Comforting. I want you to see what that feels like. Just sit back, let it happen. See what that's like. Maybe this isn't something you do often. I like this. My wife doesn't. It's okay. You may not enjoy this, but just experience it. All right, switch. And if you're by yourself, just try your other hand. Notice what that feels like. Okay, now we're going to try the old arm around. Maybe doing it already. And if you are, just be aware of it now on all levels of awareness. What does it feel like to have his arm around you? And if there's anybody who's in the class tonight who's not heterosexual, flip a coin to see who goes first. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. All right, and switch arm around. And you may put your hand on their shoulder, maybe more on their back, maybe on their arm. Just notice, see what that feels like. And try to derive a sense of comfort and closeness from this. All right, now we're going to try to put the old hand on the leg. And you know what? We can do this at the same time. Why don't you guys make sure that you each have a hand on the other person's leg. Maybe you move the hand a little bit. Maybe you squeeze the leg a little bit, as long as it doesn't tickle. And now let's go for the old handhold. And if you want to get really saucy, you can do some interdigitation. And feel that with all of your senses and notice what it's like. Okay. I'd like you to take a minute and talk to each other about which one of those felt most comforting. Which did you like the most? Which would you like them to spontaneously do more of to you? Make a little mental note of what they said. Be like, okay, more of this, do more of this touch. These patterns of just touching more, of having the psychological connection when you talk, making sure that you've got their attention before you say anything. The touch as you say something, sitting next to each other, holding hands, whatever. These are more of those positive patterns that are very simple, just like smiling. And if we increase how often they happen, you're going to have a better relationship. So now let's talk about some things that kill emotional connection. How about that? We'll talk about the negative patterns that tend to hurt the connection. First, feeling rejected. And man, there are a lot of ways that you can feel rejection. Let's count them, just a few of them. If you make a bid for someone's attention and they don't look up, if you say, hey, and they're still on their phone, that's a failed bid. We have to try it again, but sometimes we don't want to. Getting interrupted. Oh my goodness gracious. You start telling something like, oh, you know what, blah, 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 this. And maybe it was totally innocent, but it's still, you're like, fine, I don't care. I'm not going to share with them anyway. It happened to me yesterday on the way home from the tax man. Started sharing a story, got interrupted, and I was like, and I brought it up, and I was like, hey, I want to finish my story. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't even know. You change the topic on somebody, same thing. The biggest general thing that makes people feel rejected is negativity. And there are a lot of ways we can be negative to each other. And that's what our class next time is going to focus on more specifically, what the top patterns of negativity are that everyone falls into. If you've ever thought like, man, we have communication issues, next time is going to be the class that's going to answer a lot of those problems. One of the other ways, and this is a little bit of a sneaky way that our emotional connection can be disrupted, is if we show that we don't respect their opinion. And that's not sometimes very overt. It could be little things, like they share something and we just laugh a little bit. Maybe we give a slight eye roll or something. Or we come at them with a really strong counter opinion. Like, no, that's wrong, it's this. If we act dismissive. If we don't show that we're trying to understand where they come from, they can really feel a lot of rejection there. I would recommend, if this is a problem for you, if you notice you're one of those people who has very strong opinions, and you catch yourself saying, I don't know how anybody could believe this. I don't get them. I don't know where they're coming from. You've got a little bit of work to do on that. And man, I had a lot of work to do on this. I was so opinionated. I'm still opinionated, but I'm a little softer around the edges. I used to say whatever I thought, and I didn't even think about how it would impact people. So when I was in 6th grade, I just didn't have a filter. I met a girl from Australia, and the first thing I said to her was, oh, did you know that your ancestors were criminals? Like, I say true things. I share facts. I say what I think. This movie sucks. This is my favorite movie. Fine, I think it sucks. You know, it caused a lot of conflict. And we need to spend a little bit of time, a lot of time actually, practicing seeing where people are coming from, working on our diplomacy skills. And so if you're a Democrat, it's important that you learn to understand Republicans. And if you're a Republican, you need to understand the Democrat. If you're like, I don't know how anybody could be on this side of gun control, this side of abortion, this side of whatever, it's important that you learn how. And please, please do it quickly, because we don't talk anymore. Congress doesn't talk anymore. There's complete division and nobody is trying to understand each other. When there's no understanding, there's no safety. When there's no safety, there's gridlock. When there's gridlock, there's anger and animosity. And after that comes violence and civil wars. Please work on that if you could. Really, really appreciate that. There is a subreddit on the website, Reddit, it's a community, and it's called Change My View. And it's a place for open and honest discussion where you can say, hey, this is what I believe. Tell me why you believe differently. It may be one of the only places on the internet where you can find like respectful and thoughtful conversation. I'd recommend checking it out, reading through the arguments. And of course, you're going to have your opinions. And it's not important that you change your opinions. It's just important that you see where the other person is coming from so that you can approach them with less rigidity. As a therapist, people come to see me with all kinds of beliefs. Sometimes they come in and we share religious beliefs. Sometimes they're atheists, and I understand where atheists are coming from. Sometimes I think better than religious people. But I can understand people of different faiths. I can understand people of no faith. I can understand people from all different kinds of politics. And this allows me to connect with people. I don't feel like this rising urge where I have to bite my tongue to like correct people or say, you're wrong on this. I can just be with them in the moment and talk about what's most important. And that is a very, very useful skill that I think we could all stand to develop a little bit more. The other pillars of emotional connection, if we're not feeling good enough. And like I said earlier, we may be doing everything to provide a safe environment, but if we have self-rejection going on, or if our partner does, it doesn't matter how nice we are. It doesn't matter how nice the people are around us. If we reject ourselves, we're going to bat away compliments. No, stop, please. We're not going to be able to accept the safety they're offering. We're not going to be able to accept the comfort that they may be offering. We'll hug them, and they'll just be like, I still feel alone. Like, I'm trying to hug you. I'm trying to connect. So that's a little self-work that we may need to do there. One of the other things that can get in the way is not feeling like you're an equal partner in the relationship. And sometimes that can automatically happen just because we have gender roles that are just part of society. We have expectations of what a woman's job is, what a man's job is. And we don't usually talk about that. You don't get engaged and say, what do you see your role in this relationship as? You feel like you're going to be a Susie homemaker? Are you going to be doing 90% of the cooking? Like, we don't talk about that. And that can often make us feel like we're on uneven footing. If we haven't had the discussion of who gets to do what, and if we haven't come to a conclusion that we find mutually satisfactory, that can kill the emotional connection. very related to that is the concept of sharing power. If you kind of always did your own finances and you come into the relationship and you're like, I handle the finances, I'll give you an allowance, that might make them feel like maybe they're not as valued. Are you making decisions as a team, or are you still trying to be an individual in the relationship? Because it has to go from me to we. You have to function as a team on certain things. And so if there's not an equality, there's going to be some resentment, and it's going to prevent connection. So look at the money, look at the decision-making process. My wife is a harmonizer personality type. She feels a lot of pressure to go along with what other people want. Whatever the loudest voice says, whatever the majority says, she will kind of tend to stuff what she wants. And she has a hard time speaking up for herself. And knowing that about her, I've had to work extra hard because she, she's in this process of developing her assertiveness, and she's been coming a long way, but she's had to have times to practice. And so I had to be aware of her, helping her to feel visible by knowing that maybe she's saying like, yeah, pizza's fine, when really she wants Chick-fil-A. And so I really try to be like, are you sure? Do you really want? You know what you really want? And I don't take the first answer. So those are some of the killers. That's a good list to have and just check through and be like, anything on here I need to change? Now, one part of emotional intimacy is sexual intimacy. And if the emotional connection isn't there, the sexual connection isn't going to be there. And if you've ever had problems in your sex life, it's probably because there's some emotional disconnection going on. And often when couples work on the emotional connection, the sexual problems go away, because sex is a physical expression of the emotional connection. And it's really easy to let that just be something we go through the motions with. And it's not based in the emotions as much. It's not based on the connection and the feeling of closeness to a person. So if there's been sexual issues, look at the emotional stuff first. But there may also be physical issues. So make sure that you go to a doctor and get checked out there, rule out the physical causes, and we start looking into the emotions. When we run across couples who, or one partner wants sex frequently and the other one doesn't, some of that's just going to be temperament. Sometimes we just have different preferences. I want chocolate every day. Not everyone needs chocolate every day or wants it every day. And same thing with sex. So that's a normal thing. And that often just requires finding some kind of a middle ground where you can both be more or less happy. But if there's a significant difference, that can often be because there is a lack of emotional connection. Think about usually when we get married, there's a lot of sex, a lot, because we have so much closeness. There's still all the infatuation. The emotions start to fade, and then the sex starts to fade too. So if we increase the emotional connection, there's usually a desire for more sexual intimacy. One of the other reasons, though, would be if there was some kind of sexual trauma in your past. It can make it very difficult to want to connect sexually, because it reminds you of the experience you went through. And that can be a very significant block, and that's something that's best to probably be worked out in therapy, because that can be pretty intense to deal with. One of the other things I often see is that anytime sex comes up, there's this expectation of orgasm. Like, it has to be orgasm, and maybe even has to be mutual orgasm. And that can really kill the mood, because as soon as you have expectations on sex, it's not this fun, relaxed thing you're just doing for a good time. It's like baby making sex. Ugh. My wife and I have been trying to get pregnant for a while, and every month, when her fertility window rolls around, it's like, all right, when can I do this? I have appointments. Okay, we'll try for noon today. Ugh, it's not fun because it's obligatory. So expectations, whether for orgasm or just that it has to happen, if this is something you guys have scheduled and one person doesn't want to do it, that needs to be reworked a little bit. Perhaps you're approaching sexual intimacy with too much focus on your own pleasure and not theirs. You start to focus on them, you'll find that that gives you pleasure, and then it's better for everybody. Sometimes we think it has to be the same each time and get boring. The same thing each time, we're just like, oh, I've already done that. I don't need to do that. It's just like movies, you know? Princess Bride's a great movie, but I haven't watched it since like 1995 because I know it. I know the whole thing. It's memorized. So I don't watch it now. And sex can get very boring too. So we got to spice it up a little bit. And along the lines of obligation, we need to have a way to initiate sex that both people are comfortable with. Because if, and this is something you may have recognized, where you kind of avoid kissing, because if you let your partner start kissing you, then they want sex. And so this disconnects people on these more superficial levels because they're afraid there's an obligation. So you need to talk about a way to be able to say, I'm not in the mood. And if you can't say no, that's kind of a problem too. Now, if you've run into any of these problems, obviously there's something to talk about, but I want to give you an exercise that you can use as kind of the last thing for tonight as a way to build intimacy. And this is called sensate touch. So if you haven't been taking notes, go ahead and make sure that you have something to write on, because there's 3 steps to this. So the first thing you're going to do, you got to set the mood, get some good lighting going on, make sure that you're both showered, you're not stinky, make sure that there's no distractions, no kid's going to come home and interrupt anything. And you're going to take turns. So you'll both undress and you'll decide who goes first. And the person who's going first is going to explore non-sexual touch. And it's for the pleasure of the person doing the toucher. So the person's going first, they get to explore the other person's body. No touching of the genitals, no touching the breasts. There's other areas. And you'll be doing so with just a focus on, what do I like? What feels good for me? And the only kind of feedback the person getting touched would say would, if it's like uncomfortable, you have to give like an adjustment, like, hey, that tickles, please do that more firmly, or lighter pressure, that hurts, whatever. That's stage 1. You each take a turn doing that. And it's good to kind of practice this. You can do this a couple times in a month. If you've got severe issues, if like intercourse is a real problem, then it's good to just say, you know what, for these next however many times, we're just going to do this. Just to explore, just to get more comfortable, just to learn more about what we like. Here's stage 2. You do the same thing, taking turns, except this time, breasts and genitals are in play. But you're still just doing it for your own pleasure, for your own exploration. And the person being touched can give those same adjustments at stage 2. And in stage 3, you're not taking turns anymore. Now everything's in play, but you're doing it at the same time for your own pleasure. And it can really help to just open things up and make it kind of a fun, relaxing experience, to break out of the old habit and to find things that you like, find things that work for you. Well, like I said, it's usually the emotional intimacy that needs to be worked on first. But if that's kind of being worked on, I say try the sensate touch and see what you learn. This is something that we often don't talk about. It's just kind of something we do. And like anything else, like finances, like communication, it's something that needs to be talked about. And if there's something that's causing it to not work so well, it's uncomfortable sometimes to say it, but it's okay. It's okay to work on talking about things and maybe lowering the expectation so that it doesn't feel like there's so much riding on it. Because even if there's no orgasms, even if it was just kind of like unsatisfying, I don't know, you still got naked and had some fun, right? And it's all about progressing and going from step to step and not expecting too much out of yourselves or out of each other. So I'd like to hear the gold nuggets. What things have stood out to you today? What are the things where you're like, oh, I like this. This helped to make something click. This is something I want to try. please share your gold nuggets so that everyone can benefit, because it's helpful to hear kind of the summary, the things that stood out to the other people. You can go ahead and unmute yourself or use the chat box.
I feel like I always have stuff to say, but I'm happy to go first because I do. I don't know why it's not completely commonplace. Oh, somebody else just wrote the same thing. For newly married couples to have gratitude journals, to write about what they're thankful for about each other. That's genius.
For real, though.
And somebody else just did the same thing. Katie just said, I love the idea of gratitude journal focused on your spouse. Yeah, me too. I don't know why. Never thought about that before, but it seems like such a smart way. They don't even ever have to know anything that you write, but just to remember at the end of the day what you're grateful for, because it gets so easy and our brains so easily focus on the negative or the hard stuff or whatever, to kind of change that neural pathway to the gratitude becomes revelatory to me.
Pretty simple too.
Yeah.
What else stood out today? Let's see. Alexander said, I love the touch portion, and we do a lot of the other touch, but we don't hold hands much. Holding hands felt really special.
I really liked the focus on emotional intimacy and finding ways to strengthen that part.
Can you sum that up for me, Amy? What would you say about that specifically?
I liked, what were the words you used? Attunement. I think attunement is the one that I'm really looking forward to.
Build attunement. Thank you. What else have we got?
Where am I? Oh, there we are. You know that negative, well, I don't know if you called it negative, but things that we can do that kind of disrupt the pyramid. That's interesting. You talked about when people are talking, interrupting, change the topic, don't understand, we bring in negativity, our strong opinions. Oh boy. And so all those things were kind of, yeah, me. So, and I love also that you say, regard me, because a lot of times I'm busy on my computer or on my phone, and Bob will have to say, that's a good thing, say regard me. Regard me and be like, huh? Oh, you're in the room? I mean, I don't know. I really love that stuff.
Not that bad.
Okay. I can't.
So we got avoid. What would you say? Put that into a little sentence for me.
Oh, it was that the things that can damage conversations, I guess. I can't remember how you put it, but I just put all those negative things that can interrupt the conversation. And the thing about regard me. And you know, okay, I'm really terrible at this. If someone calls me on the phone, and if I'm near my computer, I start reading Facebook, and it's like, oh wait, I should be regarding them. I'm on the phone with them, and they'll tell me something. I'm like, oh, what did you say? Oh my gosh.
I would never do that. I've never done that, Mary. You're the only one who's ever done that.
Hey, remember, everything that we say is kept here.
Like Vegas.
like in Vegas.
Okay, looks like we got some more chat. Help each other feel seen. Thank you, Katie. Matt says, I love the reminder of how you responded to each other to make sure you responded safely, respectfully, and didn't force your own opinions. Respond to Aubrey says, I like the quotes. All love for others is an extension of the love you have for one's, yes, the love one has for self. And your point that we can't get closer to someone than we are to ourselves. Having a healthy relationship starts with the self. That is so key and makes an amazing difference in any relationship, especially with your loved ones. Yes, thank you. So all love is an extension of self-love. And we've got can't get closer to someone than we are to ourselves. Cool. Awesome nuggets. Thank you for sharing, everybody. So today we've got some homework assignments to continue. First of all, let's continue everything from last time. Continue to express appreciation at least twice a week. And you're going to be continuing the rituals of parting and reunions, because these are just patterns that you want to make a lifestyle. I want to work on making sure that all this just becomes second nature, so that expressing appreciation is just something you do automatically. In preparation for tonight, I went over and told my wife, I appreciate you making those pot stickers, even when you didn't want to. Thank you. And as far as the connection and the attunement, as you're smiling at each other when they walk into the room, and as you're getting close to each other, make sure there's more touch. Do more of that, more eye contact, more physical touch. Sit on the couch and hold hands more if you haven't been doing that. Cuddle in bed before you go to sleep. The new thing for today is to keep a gratitude journal. And you may want to just make this easy on yourself and hop on Amazon and just buy one now so that it'll arrive and you won't have to go, oh yeah, I need to go to the store. And I would suggest you add in using one other thing, something that you can do to make them feel visible. Just something maybe once a week, and it doesn't have to be big. Like, I don't write my wife notes every week. That might make me feel a little overwhelmed. It's something small, and maybe it is just an appreciation about something you know they really care about. Those are your assignments. Keep up the patterns, keep making your relationships awesome. Do we have any questions tonight? Questions may be about something we talked about or about anything else.
While people are thinking about their questions, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have questions that you would prefer not to ask publicly, I just put Kenneth's email in the chat, and in the Eventbrite listing, there is also a Google form link that you can submit questions to 100% anonymously if you would like. And so if you have questions that you would prefer not to ask out loud in real time, but would like answered in a future class anyway, then you can email Kenneth or fill out that Google form with your question, and he'll get the questions either way.
My gratitude journal, just some random journal, has a scripture quote on it, and I don't even know where she got it. But Hobby Lobby's always got that 40% off coupon. You just got to get on your phone before you go in the store. Let me share the flow chart. And this presentation is being recorded. The American Fork Library YouTube channel has the first one up, and Wendy will get this one uploaded when she gets this one uploaded.
Probably tomorrow.
And the questions that were asked on the forum last time helped to shape this presentation. So I love getting the feedback. If there's something you specifically want me to go over, I'll definitely try to work that in.
You're saying what you typed for what we need to do.
Oh, okay. So not this one. Oh wait, no, that's from Matt. Matt, I hope you got a screenshot for what we need to do. Okay, so I didn't make one of those, but let me do that now. That is a good idea. Pull up the old whiteboard. All right, so use gratitude journal.
Smile.
I think that was everything. All right. Well, if you have any questions, you can put them into the Google form. If you want to see something addressed, you can send me an email. And thank you for coming. Appreciate you having me here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for showing up, everybody. You're making your homes and our community a better place by recognizing the need to constantly be working on yourselves and your relationships, and that is good for you, but also good for everybody around you. So we appreciate everybody showing up. Thank you so much, Kenneth, as always. We love what you do for our community as well. And if nobody else has any more questions, we'll say good night. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Cool. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next class is the last, sorry, somebody is asking. The next class is the last Friday of next month. All of the class dates are on the Eventbrite. Let me tell you what the date is really fast. I think it's the same date, right? For next month, the 26th, since February and March are the same. So it'll be March 26th, the last Friday of March will be the next Better Together class. And just as a reminder, the AF Aware class on grief and trauma recovery is on the 11th of March, and you can register for that Zoom link on Eventbrite as well. Good questions. Thanks, everybody.